Imagine you're 13 years old, standing at the front of a classroom, a marker trembling in your hand. Your teacher has just thrown you a challenge, a math equation so complex it could stump a college student. Your classmates snicker, their eyes heavy with doubt. They think you're about to crash and burn. But what they don't know is that you're not just any kid. You're a hidden genius, ready to shatter their expectations and rewrite your story. Welcome to the Jones Life Stories, where we bring you tales of courage, brilliance, and transformation that inspire you to unlock your own potential. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join us on this incredible journey, because every story we share on the Jones Life Stories is a reminder that you, too, have greatness within you. A young black boy, Jamal Carter, stands at a whiteboard, gripping a marker. The camera zooms in on his determined eyes as muffled laughter echoes in the background. The screen fades to the Jones Life Stories logo with a vibrant call to action: subscribe and share. The midday sun poured golden streaks through the windows of Riverside Middle School in Atlanta, Georgia. It was early autumn 2025, and the hallways buzzed with the energy of students laughing, chatting, and shuffling to their next class. Room 3002, home to 8th grade math, was no exception. Chairs scraped against the linoleum floor, and the low hum of adolescent chatter filled the air as students filed in, their backpacks slung carelessly over shoulders. At the back of the room, near a window overlooking a row of swaying trees, sat Jamal Carter, a 13-year-old black boy with a quiet presence that let him blend into the background. His sharp brown eyes, often distant, drifted toward the world outside. A bird hopped along a fence, its movements more captivating to Jamal than the chaos of the classroom. Jamal wasn't inattentive by choice. His mind was a whirlwind of numbers, patterns, and puzzles that moved faster than the slow pace of his math lessons. While his classmates struggled with basic algebra, Jamal's notebook hid a secret: margins filled with advanced equations, graphs, and solutions he'd scribbled during stolen moments. These weren't assignments, they were challenges he set for himself, puzzles that made his heart race with excitement. But in class, he stayed silent, his arm propping up his chin, his thoughts wandering to the rhythm of the world outside. At the front of the room stood Mrs. Amanda Thompson, a no-nonsense teacher in her 40s whose tailored blazer and neatly styled hair radiated authority. With years of experience, she prided herself on spotting potential in her students, pushing them to meet her high expectations. But today, her patience was thin. A stack of graded math tests sat on her desk, and the results were disappointing. Too many low scores. Too little effort, she thought. She picked up the stack, her sharp gaze scanning the room as she began calling names. Sarah, decent work. Michael, you need to study more, she said, handing out papers with clipped comments. When she reached Jamal's desk, she paused. His test, marked with a bold red 100%, sat at the top of the pile. It wasn't the first time he'd aced a test, but his apparent disinterest in class frustrated her. She handed him the paper without a word, her lips pressed into a thin line, and returned to the front of the room. All right, listen up. Mrs. Thompson's voice sliced through the chatter, silencing the class. Most of you did okay. Her tone suggested otherwise. But too many of you are struggling with concepts we've covered for weeks. This is basic algebra. You'll need it for high school, college, for life. Step it up. Jamal, barely listening, rested his chin on his hand, his eyes drifting back to the window. The soft rustle of leaves outside was more engaging than the lecture. He didn't notice Mrs. Thompson's gaze flicker toward him, a spark of irritation in her eyes. Jamal Carter! Her voice snapped like a whip, jolting him upright. His hand slipped from his chin, and heat rushed to his cheeks as every head in the room turned to stare. Yes, ma'am, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. Mrs. Thompson crossed her arms, nodding toward the window. You seem very interested in what's going on outside. Care to share what's so fascinating? Jamal opened his mouth, then closed it, unsure how to respond. A few muffled chuckles rippled through the room, but Mrs. Thompson's expression remained stern. Let's see if you've been paying attention, she said, her tone sharp. Come up here. The room fell silent as Jamal stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His classmates watched with a mix of amusement and curiosity, some whispering under their breath. She's gonna roast him, one boy muttered. He never talks. He doesn't even know what's going on," another added, stifling a laugh. Jamal's palms grew sweaty as he walked to the whiteboard, each step feeling heavier under the weight of their eyes. Mrs. Thompson, marker in hand, wrote an equation on the board, a complex tangle of variables, exponents, and fractions far beyond the 8th grade curriculum. She stepped back, holding the marker out to him. "Go ahead," she said, her tone almost challenging. "Show us what you've got." Jamal took the marker, its cool plastic pressing into his hand. He stared at the equation, his mind racing. The whispers and laughter behind him sharpened the pressure, and for a fleeting moment, he considered handing the marker back and retreating to his seat. But something stopped him, a quiet voice inside reminding him of the countless hours he'd spent solving problems just like this, alone in his room, lost in the beauty of numbers. This wasn't about Mrs. Thompson or his classmates. This was about him and what he knew he could do. He took a deep breath, raised the marker, and began to write. Visual. Close-up of Jamal's hand moving across the whiteboard, the marker squeaking as he writes. The camera pans to his focused expression, then to the equation, which starts to take shape with neat, precise steps. Narrator voiceover, with rising excitement. Here's where the story takes a turn, folks. Jamal Carter, the quiet kid who blends into the background, is about to show the world what he's made of. And this is why we share stories like this on the Jones Life Stories. To remind you that no matter where you are, no matter how invisible you feel, your moment to shine is waiting. Subscribe now and share this story with someone who needs a spark of inspiration. The classroom seemed to shrink as Jamal stood at the whiteboard, the marker feeling heavier with each second. The equation loomed before him, a maze of numbers and symbols that would intimidate most 8th graders. Behind him, the whispers grew sharper. "No way he's getting this," one boy muttered. "He doesn't even know where to start," another said, laughing softly. Jamal's shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. His eyes locked onto the equation, and slowly it came into focus. Beneath the nerves, a spark of determination flickered. He could do this. He had to. His hand moved tentatively at first, testing the waters, but as he broke the equation into smaller pieces, his strokes grew steadier. He isolated variables, simplified fractions, and eliminated unnecessary steps, his mind moving like a well-oiled machine. The class's murmurs shifted. "Wait, is he actually doing it?" a girl in the second row whispered. "Looks like it," her friend replied, leaning forward. The room grew quieter as more students realized what was happening. The snickers faded, replaced by wide-eyed stares. Even the boy who'd laughed earlier now watched with his mouth slightly open. Mrs. Thompson stood by her desk, arms crossed, her raised eyebrow betraying a mix of curiosity and skepticism. She'd chosen this problem to test Jamal's focus, expecting him to struggle. But as his work unfolded clear, precise, and correct, her expression softened into astonishment. She stepped closer, her sharp gaze scanning each line of a solution. Jamal paused briefly, double-checking his work, then moved to the final steps. The weight of the class's attention fueled him now, not overwhelmed him. He wrote the last few numbers, circled the answer, and capped the marker with a satisfying click. Stepping back, he turned to face the room, his heart pounding but his expression calm. The whiteboard was a masterpiece of logic, each step building on the last, leading to the correct answer. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the fluorescent lights was the only sound. Jamal scanned the room, catching glimpses of wide eyes and slack jaws. Even the students who usually ignored him now looked at him with something bordering on awe. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, her heels clicking softly. She studied the board, her finger tracing each line of Jamal's solution, her lips moving silently as she verified his work. Her brow furrowed slightly at one point, then smoothed out. Finally, she turned to him, her expression a mix of surprise and respect. "This is correct," she said, her voice quieter than usual. A ripple of disbelief spread through the class, followed by tentative claps. The applause grew louder, filling the room as more students joined in. Jamal stood there, unsure how to react, his cheeks burning, not from embarrassment, but from a new, unfamiliar feeling, pride. Mrs. Thompson raised a hand to quiet the class. "What you just saw wasn't luck," she said, gesturing to the board. "This is what happens when someone truly understands a material." Jamal didn't just solve his problem, he broke it down, piece by piece, and made it look easy. That's real mastery. Her words hung in the air, and for once, Jamal didn't feel the urge to shrink back into his seat. He stood taller, his hands loosely at his sides. Jamal, Mrs. Thompson continued, her tone softer, why haven't you spoken up before? If you can do this, why do you sit in the back and stay so quiet? Jamal hesitated, glancing at his sneakers. How could he explain the fear of standing out, the comfort of staying invisible? I didn't think anyone noticed, he said quietly. Mrs. Thompson's expression softened. Well, she said, it's time for that to change. Visual. Jamal returns to his seat, the applause lingering. His classmates exchange whispers and glances, their skepticism replaced by curiosity and respect. Narrator voiceover, heartfelt. And just like that, Jamal Carter's world shifted. The boy who hid his brilliance in the margins of his notebook was now seen, truly seen for the first time. This is the power of stepping into your potential, and it's why we share these stories on the Jones Life Stories. If Jamal's journey inspires you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to believe in their own greatness. Let's spread the spark together. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, students began to file out, but not before several stopped by Jamal's desk. That was awesome, man, one boy said, offering a fist bump. How'd you do that? A girl asked, her eyes wide with awe. Jamal nodded awkwardly, clutching his notebook tighter. The attention was new, exhilarating, and a little terrifying. Mrs. Thompson called out, Jamal, can you stay for a moment? Once the room emptied, she leaned against her desk, studying him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Jamal, she began, her tone softer than he'd ever heard. I owe you an apology. Jamal blinked, unsure if he'd heard her correctly. An apology? She nodded. I've been teaching a long time, and I like to think I know my students. But with you, I misjudged you. I thought your quietness meant you weren't interested, that you didn't care. Clearly, I was wrong. Jamal shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. It's okay, he mumbled. No, it's not, Mrs. Thompson said firmly. You have a gift, Jamal, and I don't want to see you hide it. Do you realize how rare it is for someone your age to solve a problem like that? To think the way you do. Jamal looked down at his notebook, his fingers tracing its worn edges. I don't know, he said quietly. I just like doing it. It makes sense to me. Mrs. Thompson smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. That's what makes it special. You see things differently, and that's something to be proud of. But you can't keep it to yourself. There are programs, competitions, advanced courses that could challenge you, help you grow. I'd be happy to help you find them if you're interested. Jamal's heart raced. The idea of stepping into a world beyond his quiet comfort zone was thrilling but daunting. He thought about the moment at the board, the way the equation had clicked into place, the way the room had felt different afterward. Could he do more? Be more? I don't know, he admitted. What if I mess up? Mrs. Thompson's smile widened. Messing up is part of learning. But if you don't try, you'll never know what you're capable of. That night, Jamal sat at the small kitchen table in his family's modest home, his notebook open before him. His parents, Lisa and Marcus Carter, sat nearby, listening intently as he recounted the day's events, the equation, the applause, Mrs. Thompson's offer. Lisa's eyes glistened with pride as she reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Jamal, we've always known you were special. I'm so glad others are starting to see it too. Marcus nodded, his deep voice steady. This is just the beginning, son. Don't be afraid to show the world what you can do. Jamal spent the evening staring at his notebook. For so long, it had been a private escape, a place for secrets, equations he solved for himself, notes he never shared. Now it felt like more, a space for possibilities. He picked up his pencil and began to write, not just equations but ideas, goals, dreams. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of being seen. He was ready to step forward, to see where his talent could take him. Narrator voiceover inspiring. Jamal's story isn't just about solving an equation, it's about embracing who you are, even when it scares you. At the Jones Life Stories, we believe everyone has a spark waiting to ignite. Subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and share this story to remind someone that their moment to shine is closer than they think. The next day, room 3002 felt different. Jamal Carter, once the quiet kid by the window, was now the center of attention. As he walked in, classmates greeted him with nods, smiles, and high fives. "Yo, Jamal, that was crazy yesterday," a boy called from the back. "How'd you even do that?" Jamal hesitated, his instinct to shrink from attention battling a new sense of pride. "I just worked through it," he said modestly, sliding into his seat. "That wasn't just working through it," a girl named Kayla chimed in, leaning across her desk. "You made it look easy. You're like a math wizard or something." Jamal's cheeks flushed, but he managed a shy thanks. Even students who'd never spoken to him before were curious. "Can you help me with my homework?" one asked. "How do you get so good at math?" another wondered. For the first time, Jamal felt like he belonged, not as the invisible kid but as someone respected seen. Mrs. Thompson entered, her usual brisk energy tempered by a glance at Jamal that carried a trace of a smile. She began the lesson, explaining quadratic equations, but her tone was less sharp, her movements less rigid. When she called on Jamal to answer a question, her voice was encouraging, not critical. He hesitated, then answered confidently, his explanation clear and concise. The class murmured in quiet awe, and Mrs. Thompson nodded. "Excellent. That's the kind of thinking we need to see more of." After class, she asked Jamal to stay behind again. This time, the conversation wasn't about apologies, it was about opportunities. "Jamal," she said, sitting on the edge of her desk, "I've been thinking about what we talked about. You have an incredible gift, and I don't want it to go to waste. There's an advanced math program at the district level, a class for students like you who need more challenge. It's after school, twice a week. I think you'd be a perfect fit." Jamal's eyes widened. The idea was exciting but intimidating. "Do you think I'd be good enough?" he asked. Mrs. Thompson smiled. "You've already proven it. This is a chance to explore your potential, to see how far you can go. I've spoken to the program coordinator, and they're excited to have you." Jamal's mind raced. He thought about the whiteboard, the admiration in his classmates' eyes, the pride in his parents' faces. Slowly, he nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." The following week, Jamal walked into his first advanced math class, his heart pounding with the same nervous anticipation he'd felt at the whiteboard. The room was filled with students from different schools, their energy vibrant and competitive. As the instructor dove into a challenging problem set, Jamal realized he was in the right place. The pace was fast, the problems complex, the discussions lively. For the first time, he was surrounded by peers who shared his love for numbers, and it was exhilarating. Back at Riverside Middle, Jamal's reputation as the math kid grew. Classmates sought him out for help, not just in math, but as someone they respected. The boy who'd once felt invisible was now woven into the fabric of the class, his quiet brilliance inspiring others. Mrs. Thompson, too, began to see her students differently. Jamal's transformation reminded her to look beyond surface behavior, to seek the hidden potential in every quiet corner of her classroom. She made it a point to engage her reserved students, encouraging them to step forward in their own ways. One evening, as Jamal worked on a tricky problem for his advanced class, his mother, Lisa, placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Jamal," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've always been special, but now the world's starting to see it too." Jamal looked up, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks, Mom." He glanced at his notebook, his pencil hovering over the page. For the first time, he wasn't just solving a problem for himself. He was building a future, one equation, one opportunity, one step at a time. As he wrote the next line of his solution, a quiet certainty settled over him. He didn't know where his path would lead, but he wasn't afraid to follow it. The boy who'd once hidden his brilliance was ready to shine. Narrator voiceover, triumphant. Jamal Carter's story is a testament to the power of believing in yourself, even when the world hasn't caught up yet. At the Jones Life Stories, we're here to share meaningful stories that lift you up and remind you that your potential is limitless. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt inspiration from the Jones Life Stories. Together, Let's celebrate the hidden brilliance in us all. Visual: Jamal at the kitchen table, writing in his notebook, a determined smile on his face. The screen fades to the Jones Life Stories logo with text. Like, subscribe, share. Join us for more inspiring stories.